Welcome to Pandemic, ladies and gentlemen. Are we having tons and tons of fun, boys and girls? Does anybody need us to turn up the heat? Coffee is for closure. It's $1 billion business, and I want a piece of it. Another one of those nice donuts. There is an ancient Chinese curse that you might live in interesting times that surely we have. And the Mandarin character for crisis is a unique marriage of two Mandarin characters, danger and opportunity, to remind us that wherever there is danger, there is always opportunity for the brave and the bold. And fortune always favors the bold in battle. You have been chosen as a project management team to develop a solution for a pandemic pathogen that has infected over 34 million Americans and that has been attributed to the deaths of over 609,000 Americans, most of whom have been the elderly in nursing homes. A known risk from the very beginning, but also we are now seeing the obese. But today there is a new product, the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the Johnson & Johnson vaccines. So let me explain how you will be evaluated in this pandemic apprentice project management simulation. Only the strong survive. Hello, my name is Major Mike Webb, and I am running for Arlington Public School Board. And this is truly a very unique school board race, because last year every school board across America was basically selected to appear on a reality television show version of the Apprentice Pandemic Edition. But it was not just a test for public school boards or even teachers, but also, at least according to the nation's only physician serving as a state governor and former Army surgeon Ralph Northam, a biological war, which perhaps for some in political messaging is a beautiful metaphor that provides feelings of efficacy and empowerment, makes you feel like a hero. For the over 75% of age-eligible Americans who are not even eligible by reason of intelligence, physical fitness, or criminal record, not even eligible to begin service in the military, and from among whom, according to recent surveys, appear overwhelmingly to perceive consent to being administered either the 1 or 2 shot regimens from Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson as fulfillment of their civic duty as combat soldiers in Northam's biological war. And a chance to be heroes, finding even Republican Governor of Alabama, Kay Ivey, blaming the unvaccinated for loss in the battle, shaming them for letting us down, while Minority Leader Mitch McConnell tries to sound decisive and heroic, saying these shots need to get in everybody's arm as fast as possible. But we only have 2 reactions to the unknown: fight like a soldier, or flight like a schoolgirl. Even Facebook, a public-owned company whose stock, by the way, is now selling at around $350 per share, over 10 times the price of the initial offering, now has taken up what they have called to their shareholders their patriotic duty to join in the effort to fight Governor Northam's biological war. And according to their website, they have connected over 2 billion people to what they have called credible COVID-19 information. In their biological war stories, they boast that COVID-19 information centered on Facebook and Instagram connected over 2 billion people across 189 countries to helpful, authoritative COVID-19 information. And you bought that. They boast that in the Great Biological War, they have provided data and tools to help 450 plus organizations in 70 countries battle COVID-19, and you bought that, and maybe some $350 stock. They boast that in the Great Biological War to end all biological wars, that they have provided data and tools to help 450 plus organizations in 70 countries battle COVID-19. They boast that in the Great Biological War, to end all biological war, their Data for Good program provides tools and critical data to 450 plus organizations in 70 countries to help track the spread of the virus, measure the effectiveness of preventive measures, and better understand attitudes toward COVID-19 vaccines. Paying it forward like any socially conscious company. They boast that in the biological war to end all wars, they've invested over $100 million in 30,000 small businesses because the COVID-19 pandemic has been devastating to the economy. Not necessarily to their $350 stock, but to the economy and small businesses especially. And perhaps for some, the most important of all, in the Great Biological War, they take credit for removal of over 15 million false claims about the crisis, having partnered with 80 fact-checkers around the world to remove more than 15 million false claims related to COVID-19 and the vaccines, which they say is making it easier for everyone to learn the facts. Are you learning the facts? Have you got some $350 per share stock? There may be a sucker born every day, but if you don't have stock selling at $350 per share in your portfolio, obviously there ain't a Zuckerberg born every day. But if the brilliant metaphor of pandemic is that we are fighting a biological war, perhaps the question is for our pandemic soldiers like yourself, how do you define war? According to Baron von Clausewitz, war is an extension of policy by other means. Does a nonpartisan single strand of ribonucleic acid measured in nanoparticles called microns have a policy that the nation or even you have been called to defeat? If an invasive genome was to be described as being engaged in the battle of Clausewitz, it is intriguing that technically termed a biological agent in the military is a weapon of terror. And the policy objective of terror is to strike at symbolic targets and inflict massive casualties for the purposes of advancing or promoting a political or religious agenda. Body count isn't really on the list. The objective is terror. That's why they call it terrorism. In the 9/11 terror attacks, the terrorists chose symbolic targets of America. Symbolic targets of America's military might, crashing one single large airborne particle into the Pentagon. A sufficient infectious dose to strike panic, fear, and alarm, maybe even some tears, that led to great changes in what had been before the normal in American life. And they crashed an infectious dose of another 2 large airborne particles into the side of the Twin Towers in New York. The symbol of American financial power and might, a sufficient dose to cause those powerful symbols to crumble under their own weight and crash to the ground, leaving a sense of helplessness, confusion, and fear, and probably some tears, panic. And if after 9/11 you felt a sense of fear about flying, if you altered your life in any way, if your confidence in your nation in any way was diminished, if you felt fear and helplessness, any terrorist warfare planner would have every right to do a victory dance and claim that they won, because it is not the fatalities that matter to a soldier who knows that the objective of battle is to force your adversary to commit his reserve forces to the battlefield, put everything in the fight, and to defeat the enemy's will to resist. And also sometimes to watch it die. Sometimes by force of might, and sometimes by deception, fighting on until total victory or surrender is attained, because battle is a zero-sum game where there are only 2 kinds of soldiers, the victors and the dead. Are you dead? Are you a loser? You're fired. But at least according to Field Marshal Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, the way to defeat the advancing enemy, he tells you, is through a strong defense. That's the best offense. And so Facebook is promoting vaccines in the war effort to defeat the coronavirus and to give pharmaceutical companies billions of dollars. And in July, President Biden had asked them to double their efforts in the war by eliminating false information and problem accounts, which, unlike what was said in the American Rescue Plan speech back in March about how the only way to win this war was to defeat the virus, the new enemy has become information that is challenging the vaccines. And Facebook community standards have been revised to prohibit any users or posts that encourage others not to volunteer for the vaccines that not even the president has mandated anybody take yet, and which lack the approval of the FDA as anything other than an emergency use, with no guarantees of actually being effective or working. And they could not have approved them as effective before today because even though Dr. Rochelle Walensky can claim that the Delta variant is now as infectious as chickenpox, citing no particular numbers, and that those infected with the Delta variant have viral loads of 1,260 times greater than the former variants, which you don't know the viral loads for, and that the Delta variant in less than a month has jumped from representing just 83% of new cases to now being 99% of new cases. Not even one scientist in the world yet knows the infectious dose, which any scientist knows is not difficult to determine because they have known how since the 19th century when Dr. Robert Koch was experimenting with biological agent anthrax and developed 4 postulates to validate causation, but which for no yet explained reason, not even one scientist promoting vaccines to sell to you that have made pharmaceutical companies billions of dollars while you have promoted vaccines for free as a salesman, has ever determined infectious dose that will actually get anyone infected with COVID-19, but which appears to be incredibly high. Shouldn't you know infectious dose as a salesman if you want to sell vaccines? You're fired. It appears to be incredibly high, as one should suspect for a biological agent or pathogen that the Health and Human Services Secretary, under the emergency use authorization codified at 21 U.S.C. section 360 BBB-3B1, would have had to have validated not as a highly contagious disease, but as a biological weapon of terror. If you are getting vaccinated, apparently the terror works. You did read all of this inside the sales meeting notes. To declare an emergency for purposes of the Emergency Use Authorization Act, my dear salesman, which of course you must know, the HHS Secretary may make a declaration that the circumstances exist justifying the authorization under this subsection for a product on the basis of, yes, a product on the basis of, you're a salesman for a product on the basis of, a determination by the Secretary of Homeland Security that there is a domestic emergency or significant potential for domestic emergency involving what? A heightened risk of attack with a biological, chemical, radiological, or nuclear agent or agents. At least that emergency says that you are fighting a real biological war to me. And if you didn't do the homework, soldier, or should I say salesman, that's on you. Moving on, B, a determination by the Secretary of Defense, that sounds like war, that there is a military emergency, more war, or a significant potential for a military emergency, more war, involving what? A heightened risk to the United States military forces, soldier. No, you're a salesman, including personnel operating under the authority of Title 10 or Title 50 of attack with, what are we being attacked by? Highly communicable, contagious diseases like chickenpox? No. Number 1, a biological, chemical, radiological, or nuclear agent or agents, or we're being attacked. 2, an agent or agents that may cause or otherwise associated with an imminently life-threatening and specific risk to United States military forces, salesman. But of course, you already knew that. And if you did not, then you are in the Army now. Sell. C, a determination by the Secretary that there is a public health emergency or a significant potential for a public health emergency that affects or has significant potential to affect national security or the health and security of United States citizens living abroad. And that involves a biological, chemical, radiological, or nuclear agent or agents, or a disease or condition that may be attributable to such agents. I've seen a lot of posts on social media and in online dating about how some of you soldiers, or are you salesmen, can't wait until after the pandemic so that you can return to your exciting lives, traveling abroad to exotic destinations and seeking adventure. But at least as I read this provision, the only emergency you may have in your biological war or sales promotion is to protect those United States citizens who are not staying at home like you, selling vaccines, scared to even go outside to enjoy some fine dining. But for those folks braving the pandemic, out traveling or even living abroad. I just got back from Florida back in March. Went down to go to empty theme parks. You did read the enlistment contract, right, soldiers? Or are you going to claim your recruiter lied to you? You're fired. Or finally, D, the identification of material threat pursuant to Section 319F-2 of the Public Health Service Act, 42 U.S.C. 247D-6B, sufficient to affect national security or the health and security of the United States citizens living abroad. More folks living abroad. To affect national security, which only means uniforms members of the military and public officials, which you are probably not. And to affect security of the United States citizens living abroad, not even just traveling. You have to have a permanent home over in France. Do you see a highly contagious disease on the list, soldier or salesman? Don't tell me you failed the eye test, because there is no I in team, we always say in the Army. So get out there and do your duty to sell those vaccines. No more searching day and night for an appointment for you and your loved ones. Sell, sell, sell. And if you can happen to fall in the battle of this great biological war on behalf of a grateful nation, I can only say that Marines are looking for just a few good men. And you're fired. But don't feel bad, hero, because to advance the biological warfare fight against terror, over 70% of even our military, 10% more than even the most progressive county of Arlington, Virginia, the home of the most government scientists in the nation, have volunteered to be administered a treatment product that is being offered on an as-is basis. Now that's bravery. By the defense contractor, pharmaceutical companies, on prayer or faith. And I thought you weren't religious. And that place that it actually works, because as you should know, if you're actually following the science, oh God, and not just parroting what you have been told to say as a salesman, only following orders like a good soldier, in seeking full approval for the FDA, Pfizer publicly acknowledged in a press release back in April, you must have read, the prior results of clinical trials for approval for emergency use never established that the vaccines are actually effective, like you've been telling your customers, at preventing the disease. And they are only now in what is called the phase 3 clinical trials of a very large sample of volunteers to determine empirically, like a scientist, if the COVID-19 vaccines actually work. So they can begin, after that, to market their products worldwide with a seal of approval from you. And to date, over 6,000 of your fellow volunteer Army heroes who didn't wait for a draft have fallen in the fight, taking one for the team, so that COVID-19 vaccine developers can get a safe product approved and make even one more chance at getting billions of dollars, and also boosting, of course, that $350 Facebook stock. So thanks for dying for your pharmaceutical company. You're a great American. And by the way, yeah, you're fired.
95% of businesses fail. Give a less than 5% chance of getting COVID-19. Are you a loser or are you a winner? This briefing is unclassified, as you will. My name is Major Mike Webb, and by God, I am running for Arlington Public School Board. Honest as you were. You're fired.